abuse of incumbency is any instance, any situation where an incumbent official, incumbent party, incumbent government, incumbent president is using the powers associated with the incumbency, using the privileges associated with the incumbency, using the resources at the disposal of the incumbent for its advantage, and especially for electoral advantage in this case, because public office, political office, is intended to generate benefits for society, for the country, for the public, for all of us, and not for a particular group of people exclusively or especially for the benefit of the power holders themselves. So if public power is deployed selectively to benefit the holder of that power, that is an abuse. That constitutes an abuse, abusive usage of that power. Because again, you also understand that by all means there will be some advantages to being the incumbent government, the governing party, in the same way that there may also be special disadvantages. I think we need to move back, step back a little bit, and remember that overexploitation or abuse of incumbency for electoral gain has been around from the beginning of the Fourth Republic. In fact, in the beginning, it was barely disguised. In the first Rawlings NDC administration, it was barely disguised until civil society bodies and the media began to criticize the practice and undertake advocacy against it. This then helped to increase public awareness of the problem and the damage that it was doing to democracy, to election credibility, to election fairness. In fact, systematic monitoring of abuse of incumbency by CDD-Ghana in the 2004 election cycle, highlighting the different forms in which incumbency abuse could occur, and especially naming and shaming those who were caught in that abusive behavior in that year. In my view, helped to heighten popular awareness of the problem and especially popular sensitivity about it. So it's abuse of public funds, it's abuse of public time, it's abuse of public resources, it's abuse of public policy, it's abuse of public programs for political gain. Now, the problem for me is that if you go back to the 2008 election cycle, the abuse of incumbency seemed to have gone down. It went down a little bit. Or maybe the governing party was more successful in hiding it or camouflaging it. But that suggests to me that at that time there was a certain sense of shame about the practice. There was a certain self-consciousness on the part of the governing party and its presidential candidate that this was not okay. So, for instance, the Ministry of Information's billboards advertising the achievements of the Kufuor NPP administration did draw criticisms from some of us, including me. And I remember speaking on it on Joy FM and having the information minister sort of attempt to rebut. That for me was progress. Unfortunately, and this is coming to this practice, this baneful practice, has resurged with vengeance since 2012. And you notice that this has also coincided with the coming of oil resources into our oil revenue into our national coffers, and therefore the significant expansion in the size of the spoils that go with election victory. So what this means is that incumbency is now abused so that it helps the abusive incumbent government, abusive incumbent president and governing party to enhance their chances of winning the election, so that they can then seize the spoils that go with it and can do even more capture of state resources. What for me much worse is that the media and we in civil society have virtually stopped critically commenting on this behavior, on this conduct, on this form of abuse. In the 2008 election, I happen to know that in one state agency, instruction went around for the party leadership in that institution to make sure that they went to the party congress only and exclusively in their own private vehicles and not the official ones. I'm almost inclined to believe that it is also part of the reason why GV vehicles are not as common these days, because it became clear that you were easily identified, you were easily flagged if you drove around to a party, to the ruling party's event in your government vehicle. But so I don't think so basically abuse of incumbency increases, or is expected to increase when the incumbent president is still in the running. But I still think with these things in Ghana, it's the incumbent party more than the incumbent president that you worry about.
Now you mentioned the fact that civil society and the media seem not to be commenting so much on it. What accounts for that this time? I don't know.
There is also fatigue, such a thing as fatigue. Okay. There's a lot more. I think in the 90s and in 2000s, the system was probably relatively simpler. Now there is a lot more to discuss. There's a lot, and in fact, in terms of bad behavior on the part of politicians, there's a lot more to discuss. So it sort of pushes some subjects to the fringes of the public debate. I don't think it's deliberate, but whether deliberate or not, whether by design or default, leaving this sort of this phenomenon unchecked, uncommented on, uncriticized is definitely bad for Ghanaian democracy and for Ghana's development. And it's worse that we seem to have left it to the propaganda machinery of the incumbent NPP or NDC administrations to define their own threshold of what is decent and acceptable use of state power and resources. I think that's not acceptable. That is not helpful, because there is no way, There's an English saying that you cannot get turkeys to vote for Christmas because they will be eating. They know they are the ones who are going to be eating. You can't leave it to NDC MPP to police themselves on these marches. The question is, who is to do the policing?
Yes.
If the media and civil society don't do it. And
so does this all rest with just the media and civil society?
Because who else is there?
How about putting in place some legal, some legislation to check?
We can. But again, just as we experienced with the constitutional review exercise, getting politicians to curb their own power is difficult. I mean, even the attempt to the failure of the amendment to the arrangement that says, you DCs, MCs, and others, the election of DC, MCs tells you that getting people politicians to self-regulate is not something that it's not usual, but it's worse when we as citizens do not make demands for regulation, do not make demands for abusive behavior to be checked. So that's the whole point I am making, that in the end it falls on civil society and the media, it falls on maybe the morals part of moral leaders of the country. Perhaps the National Commission on Civic Education should take it up. But certainly we can't leave it to the politicians to police themselves on this matter, because as I deliberately linked it to the oil resources and the expansion of the national treasury, and therefore how much there is for the incumbent party and the president to steal. Now, and I think we are seeing the effect of this in the increasingly brazen, more outlandish and more grotesque manner in which abuse of incumbency has been taken from one election cycle to the others, beginning from 2012. So these days, it's commonplace for special ceremonies emblazoned with the ruling party's colors and paraphernalia to be held to commission public infrastructure projects that are funded by taxpayers, directly or indirectly, or from public loans, from loans that have been secured on our behalf, which we are going to have to pay with interest. In this election cycle, we are now seeing SHS students being dragooned into singing the praises of President Akufo-Addo and the MPP, and even canvassing for votes in their favor, apparently because without President Akufo-Addo and MPP, there will be no free high school education, and maybe there will be no free high school at all. And then you also see COVID-19 relief packages being presented literally as gifts from the president and the ruling party, even though these packages have come from and have been paid from the national budget, and probably from the ballooning pile of international debts that we are going to have to pay, and pay with interest. So we are definitely heading in the wrong direction. Something must be done to arrest this situation, because it has consequences. Abuse of incumbency unfairly assigns the credit for national development to a party or president almost exclusively, and diminishes the factor of the contribution that we as citizens make to all of this. It grossly distorts the nature of the choices that voters should be making in the elections. Elections are made to seem as if it's a choice between one benevolent president and party versus an improvident and maybe unimaginative party and competitors. When it also, by its nature, privileges brick and mortar projects in the election year and maybe in the term of a president and governing party over the delivery of policies and programs that constitute the building blocks for an effective nation building. Building blocks such as equitable taxation, secure land title, effective and sound administration of justice. Effective and sound administration of justice, the rule of law, etc. And above all, it creates an uneven electoral playing field and undermines electoral credibility.